Hello friends, welcome to Total Recap. Today we are going to explain a movie named Shootout at Wadla, released in 2013. The film is based on India's first police encounter and is made from some facts and fiction. So sit with some popcorns, relax and enjoy this action/crime movie. The movie begins in an exam hall, where a girl named Vidya Joshi asks her boyfriend, Manohar Survey, a question. However, Manohar doesn't provide her with an answer, which leads to Vidya getting upset after the exam. Along with this, she was also unhappy with their relationship, which had been going on for more than 4 years, but they had not yet told their families. Finally, on January 14, 1970, Manohar takes Vidya to meet his mother. However, Manohar's stepbrother, Bhargav Survey, also arrives there. Manohar and his mother are surprised to see Bhargav because he had been on the run from some of Bhaskar Dada men, who were thugs because he beats them mercilessly. Bhargav, after meeting his mother and brother, is about to leave when Bhaskar's men catch him, and a dangerous fight ensues. One of the men is about to kill Bhargav, but then Manohar arrives and saves his brother. Afterward, Bhargav uses a knife to defeat his enemies, which surprises Vidya as she didn't know that Manohar's brother was a thug. After that, Manohar receives his college results. He was about to check his results when Inspector Ambalkar, a police officer, arrives and directs him towards a police van. When Manohar put some questions in front of Inspector, then he beating Manohar in front of all the students and teachers. Subsequently, on June 19, 1970, Manohar and his brother are sentenced to imprisonment and transferred to Yerawada Central Jail in Pune. On the first day there, when Manohar goes to have his meal, he refuses to eat anything, so a man named Sheikh Munir sitting next to him eats his food. Then, a prisoner named Potia arrives and fatally stabs Bhargav with a knife right in front of Manohar's eyes. Afterward, Munir explains to him, "I ate your meal, that's why your life was spared. But remember this, in jail, fighting, dying, and killing are all forgiven, but speaking out is not forgiven. If the jailer asks who killed your brother, don't say anything." After that, Manohar goes to thank Munir, but here Munir tells him, "Potias must have received 2 bottles of liquor to kill you and your brother. Now, for 1 bottle, he killed your brother, and in next 4 weeks when his bottle runs out, he will come out of solitary cell to kill you as well. That means you only have 4 weeks left to live." But here, Manohar tells Munir, "I have 4 weeks left to prepare for a fight with Potia, and now you will prepare me because you ate my meal." In the next scene, we see Vidya coming to meet Manohar, where he learns that her wedding is fixed for next month. This makes him very angry, and he leaves without checking his test results. After this, Munir meets Manohar, a prisoner named Veera, whose body was very strong. Initially, Veera clearly refuses to help Manohar. However, when he hears Manohar's story, he agrees to train him. From the very next moment, Manohar's training begins, and Veera also explains some basic rules for fighting to Manohar. On the other hand, Munir is busy sharpening a spoon for him. After 4 weeks, the day of the fight between Manohar and Posha arrives, and both of their hands are tied separately. Here, we witness a fierce battle between the two, and finally, Manohar pulls out the sharpened spoon from his pocket and stabs Posha in the stomach, killing him. After that, he is declared the new Don of Yerawada jail. Now, on June 23, 1978, Chawla Guest House in Bombay is shown, where the police received a report that a girl had been raped, and her husband had been shot and killed. Inspector Bhagwan then interrogates the girl who was raped, and she tells her entire story. "My husband and I were staying at this guest house for our honeymoon. Today, we returned after watching a movie when 2 goons started staring at me inappropriately. Ignoring them, my husband and I went back to our room. But when I was in the bathroom, they entered our house and began misbehaving with me. When my husband tried to protect me, they shot him dead, and then both of them forcibly raped me." However, even the staff at the guest house knew that this was the work of the Maston gang, but no one was ready to speak up against them. Just then, a news reporter named Sadiq arrives and severely criticizes the police because at that time, the police couldn't catch any goons, as the common people were more afraid of the criminals than the police and were unwilling to speak out. However, apart from this, the news reporter Sadiq gives Inspector Shinde some advice that only steel can cut steel. He then reveals the story of 2 brothers, Zubair and Dilawar, who were the biggest dons in the underworld at that time. After that, Inspector Shinde also assigns a contract to eliminate the Mastana gang and says, "The police will help you in this mission." However, they both say, "We'll think and let you know whether we want to work on this mission or not." But without knowing whether Zubair and Dilawar would work for the police or not, news reporter Sadiq published an article in his newspaper about the 2 gangsters, Yaqub and Batla, who had raped a girl in the guest house and killed her husband. Sadiq printed this news article openly because Zubair and Dilawar were just like his brothers. But before Zubair and Dilawar could take any action against the Maston gang, Inspector Bhagwan and his team, upon seeing the newspaper printed by Sadiq, had already reached Yaqub and Batla to take action against them. The date was June 27, 1978, and the place was Dongri, Bombay. To catch Yaqub and Batla, There were many police cars and ambulances present at the scene, because their plan was that if Jakub agreed, he would go in the police van, and if he didn't agree, he would go in the ambulance after getting beaten up. Then, the same thing happened. Although Jakub was sitting alone, some of his protectors were also sitting at a distance. After that, Inspector Bagwan went straight to Jakub and beat him severely before finally taking him to the ambulance. But after Jakub's arrest, his brother Batla called Inspector Bagwan and said, "If you don't release Jakub in the next 30 minutes, when your son opens his lunchbox in school recess after 30 minutes, there will be a bomb inside it that will blow up your son's entire class." Upon hearing this, Inspector Bagwan reached his son's school. However, he was amazed to see so many children there, but still, he managed to find his son's class, and just as his son was about to open his lunchbox, he snatched it and threw it in the garden outside the class. Afterward, by tracing the call from Batla, he located his whereabouts and caught him near a laundry area, beating him so severely that blood started oozing from his body. Subsequently, Batla was also apprehended, and then Inspector Bagwan summoned the girl, with whom both of them had committed rape, to the police station. Here, Inspector Bagwan handed her a belt to beat her raper Jakub and Batla. Now, the girl sought revenge from Jakub and Batla. Inspector Bagwan managed to capture 2 thugs here, but on the other side 2 were escaped from the Ratnagiri jail, Manohar and Munir. When November 24, 1979, arrived, on that very day, Manohar and Munir devised a plan to escape while working near their rail tracks, and their plan was indeed successful. After his darling Manohar went to jail, he no longer remained a decent man. He had spent 9 years in jail until now and had committed a murder. So, instead of returning home after escaping from jail, he went to a brothel. There, one man started forcing himself on a girl named Layla, which Manohar did not like. As a result, Manohar taught that man a lesson by beating him up. However, Zubair arrives there, thanks Manohar, and gives him some money because Zubair loved Layla, and Manohar had protected her. But Manohar refuses to take the money and tells Zubair that if there's any work, he should let him know. Afterward, Zubair calls Manohar to his place. The next day, Manohar goes there to meet him. But seeing Manohar's anger and sharp tongue, Dilawar realizes that Manohar talk very much rather than work. However, in response, Manohar says that it's better to use your tongue than to flatter someone. Upon hearing this, Zubair raises his hand to strike Manohar, which makes Manohar look at him with anger. In response, Zubair says, "If today weren't the first day of Ramadan, you'd find your meat at the local butcher's." After that, Dilawar tells Manohar to leave with his friend and never come back. But Manohar was so angry that he says, "I will come back here again, and the jungle will be the same, but the lion will change." From that day on, Manohar started thinking about forming his own gang. Afterward, he goes to Veera, who after serving his sentence, used to beat people on the streets for 5 rupees in 10 minutes. Here, Manohar shares his plan and recruits Veera into his gang. After that, Munir brings another friend, Vishnu, to Manohar. But Manohar starts making fun of him because he didn't look like a thug at all. However, Vishnu shows his skills to Manohar and shoots a grape off Munir's head with his target. That means Vishnu was a very good gun shooter. After that, Manohar first robs a bank, and until the police discover the theft in the bank, they rob the bank in front of them as well and leave from there. After this, Manohar also started collecting weekly money from people, and those who refused to pay him, Manohar would extract the protection money from them at gunpoint. One day, Manohar goes to a gangster named Bhaskar Dada, who refuses to give Manohar survey 50% of his profits, and he tells Munir, "Just like you, a one cockroach came a few years ago, his name was Bhargav Survey, and then I got both those brothers killed inside the jail." Now, upon hearing this, Manohar gets very angry because he found out that Bhaskar was the one responsible for ruining his life. So, he shoots Bhaskar in the head, and after that, his bodyguard also joined Manohar's gang. One day, Manohar goes to the house of God, where he meets Vidya again after so many years. Here, Manohar learns that a year after their marriage, Vidya divorced her husband and has been waiting for him in her life since that day. Afterward, both of them spend some quality time in private space for a while. Then, a few days later, Manohar meets the same police officer Ambalkar, who had put Manohar in jail. So, Manohar publicly beats him, and after that, he throws firecrackers around Ambalkar, setting him on fire. As a result, Ambalkar eventually kneels in front of Manohar, and this incident becomes the headline of the next morning's newspaper. One day, Manohar was sitting in a posh restaurant with his gang. However, the table they were sitting at was reserved in the name of Dilawar and his gang. This led to a heated argument between the lover and Manohar's gang was also furious. But they didn't take any action against Dilawar and his gang because it was the day of Gudi Padwa, a festival celebrated in Maharashtra. As they were leaving, Manohar told the lover, "I owe your brother a favor. If he hadn't slapped me then, today I have been standing behind you, but now whenever I strike hard on your chest, not back." In response, the lover said, "I pray that he neither comes on Ramadan nor on Gudi Padwa." It's revealed that Manohar had escaped from jail, and Divya also learns about it, leading to a heated argument between the two. Afterward, Divya says, "Manohar, if you don't leave this life of crime, I will leave you." Upon hearing this, Manohar replies, "Now, I don't need you either. Now, the date was April 14, 1980, and the place was J.J. Hospital, Mumbai. This is where news reporter Sadiq was in the ICU, and his condition was very serious. After being released from prison, Yaqub and Batla had severely beaten him, and it all ended with Sadiq's death. Now, because Zubair and Dilawar considered Sadiq as their elder brother, both of them were very angry about his death. After this, we see that Zubair and Dilawar, in a machine used to make ice cream, decapitated Yaqub and killed him. The police did arrive there, but they found no evidence because no one in that market was willing to testify against Zubair and Dilawar. After that, Zubair tells Inspector Raja, "If you need a witness, I will send him come to the police station myself." Then, Batla was getting a shave at a barber shop when Zubair and Dilawar arrived there and brutally assaulted Batla. They then took Batla, with his hand severed, to a butcher's shop and sent him to the police station. Afterward, Batla, with his severed hands, went to the police station and said, "I am ready to confess to every crime, to the extent that I have even killed my own brother." After this, on April 24, 1980, a reconciliation takes place between the Maston and Hoxar brothers in Maqsood Mansion, Bombay. However, that historic settlement was more of a facade than a real reconciliation. This is because soon after, leaders of the Mastana gang, Alamsd and Amirzada, arrived at Manohar Survey's place with a contract to Zubair, and Manohar agreed to this task. Here, he believed that a gang had come to seek his help, and besides, he thought that if we eliminate the other gang, Manohar Survey would become the dawn of this city. Manohar's belief was accepted by the rest of his gang members as well. Afterward, Manohar and his gang made a plan and started following Zubair's car, which was adorned with flowers. Zubair assumed it was a wedding car, so he ignored it. However, when Zubair's car stopped at a petrol pump to refuel, Manohar and his gang got out of their car. Initially, they attacked him with sharp weapons, and even when Zubair didn't die, they shot numerous bullets into his body, ultimately killing him. After killing Zubair, Manohar goes to party with his gang. On the other hand, Dilawar learns that Manohar Survey and his gang have killed his brother Zubair. He then looks at his brother's dead body and says, "Now I won't spare a single man from Manohar Survey and his gang." Afterward, we see that Dilawar's goons had captured Vishnu, Manohar's best shooter, and when he refused to disclose Manohar's whereabouts, Dilawar crushed him over with his car. Here, we also learn that Dilawar has abducted Jamal and asks him about Munir's whereabouts. Here, Jamal informs Dilawar about everything, and then when he goes to the mosque with Munir, he informs Dilawar, and then as soon as Munir finishes praying in the mosque, he is surprised to see the lover in front of him. As soon as he comes out of the shrine, the lover starts attacking him. At that moment, when Manohar learns about this incident, he rushes to save Munir without thinking twice, leaving his exercise in between. But by then, Munir's condition had become so serious that he couldn't even stand properly. That's when Manohar, traveling on a bus, arrives there and saves Munir's life. Now, he is so furious that he is about to go home and kill Dilawar. But then Munir stops him, saying, "Today, we made the mistake of underestimating Dilawar, so he took action. But tomorrow, when he underestimates us again, we will finish him." Hearing this, Manohar calms down at that moment. However, on the other side, Dilawar goes to Inspector Bhagwan to bribe him and says, "My men are unable to find Manohar, and I need to take revenge by killing him, and you can do this job perfectly." But Bhagwan refuses and asks him to leave. But the very next day, the police commissioner calls Inspector Bhagwan to his office and instructs him to kill Manohar. Both inspectors are very surprised, but then they also get ready to kill Manohar. The date was January 2, 1982. From here, the crime branch headquarters, Bombay, where the planning for encountering Manohar Survey was underway, and such an incident had never happened in India until today. Afterward, the police also caught Jamal and questioned him about Manohar Survey's whereabouts. But Manohar had separated his from the gang, yet Jamal told the police inspector, "Manohar's girlfriend Vidya is the only one who can reach you to Manohar." Now, Inspector Bhagwan and Vidya collaborate for the investigation, with Bhagwan telling her, if she can bring Manohar to them, his life can be saved. Otherwise, Manohar may die either today or tomorrow. Upon hearing this, Vidya becomes anxious. So, when Manohar calls Vidya, wanting to take her somewhere tomorrow and pick her up from Ambedkar College, Vidya calls the police inspector directly after hanging up on Manohar's call. Then, on January 10, 1982, they plan in detail to apprehend Manohar in the crime branch headquarters. They all dressed formally rather than in police uniforms. They all had books in their hands, but there were no guns among them. The date was January 11, 1982, when just 20 minutes before the arrival of Manohar at Ambedkar College, Wadla, all the police inspectors had already taken their positions. It was around 12 o'clock when Manohar arrived there, but he walked past Vidya, and when he came back to Divya, he got out of his car. At that moment, the police inspectors spotted him and began firing at him. Manohar tried to escape them all and make his way into the college, but the gate was locked, and now his gun had no bullets. Inspector Bhagwan also learned about this and then asked Manohar to surrender. However, as soon as he stepped outside, in front of Vidya, Bhagwan fired 10 shots, one after another, on Manohar's chest. Afterward, Manohar was taken to Sion Hospital, but he had already passed away before reaching the hospital because it is said that Inspector Bhagwan had driven the police van around the hospital for 35 to 40 minutes, even though the distance from Ambedkar College to the hospital was only 10 to 12 minutes. During this time, Manohar lost his life. So, this was the true story of India's first police encounter. Guys, let me tell you that Manohar Survey completed his graduation with 78% marks, and this movie ends right here. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to watch similar content.